Campaign climax, Hillary Clinton faces Donald Trump for the very first time, just as the polls show them in a dead heat. We'll bring you behind the scenes of the presidential debate coming up.
Another priest murdered in Mexico. Pope Francis prays for an end to the violence. 2 more homeland attacks. Who's behind shooting sprees in Texas and Washington state? And priestly formation. A new group of seminarians arrives in Rome. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Monday, September 26th, 2016. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump face off tonight. Their first presidential debate could reshape the campaign. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick. We have an extensive preview of tonight's debate. Jason Calvi is at the debate site in Hempstead, New York. But first, Lauren Ashburn at our political desk. Lauren?
Brian, 100 million television viewers are expected to tune in to hear the candidates' answers to policy questions on topics like education, national security, and the economy. Let's put that number in context. 67 million viewers watched 2012's first debate between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. Now, there is also a separate debate, nonverbal issue on tone, demeanor, and body language. And there's been another debate raging about whether the moderator, Lester Holt, should fact-check the candidates. Jason Calvi is going to continue our team coverage from Hofstra University in Hempstead, New York, with how the candidates are preparing. Jason.
Lauren, all the practice, all the preparations put to the test tonight. As I look around, I see reporters and anchors from around the world all focusing on what's going to happen inside that building tonight. The Clinton and Trump campaigns scouting the stage for tonight's political battle.
Probably one of the most important presidential debates in American history.
And with a possibly record-setting audience tuning in, the campaigns have been getting ready.
How is debate prep?
Is that what we were doing up there?
New York Congressman Pete King says Trump is ready.
People say he's not preparing. It's really not true. He's not preparing in the conventional way. I mean, he's not rehearsing. He doesn't have, as far as I know, any stand-in for Hillary Clinton. But he is coming up, make sure he has answers for the shots that are going to be taken at him.
Hillary Clinton prepared for tonight's debate at this hotel. Sources close to her say a longtime aide has been acting as Trump in these practices.
It's a high stakes night, but I tell you, Hillary is going to do very well.
The debate has taken over the campus of Hofstra University on Long Island, New York.
Especially my political science classes, it's a constant topic where they talk about the debate and what's probably going to be covered in the debate.
And right after tonight's debate, media from around the world will fill this floor, with each campaign spinning how they won.
There's going to be a lot of problems are going to be there facing this next president. And that next president is going to have to be a person that can deal with problems. And from what I've seen, Donald Trump can do that.
Congressman Pete King says if tonight is a tie, then he's predicting Donald Trump will win the election. I did ask Senator John McCain at the Capitol last week for his advice for the debate tonight. He said, why would anyone listen to him, Lauren? He lost. He's the loser.
Well, this format is new to Donald Trump. Many people are wondering whether or not we're going to see the debater we saw at the primary. And the format is a format that Clinton is very comfortable with. Do you think this is going to make a difference?
Well, Hillary Clinton has faced off in these one-on-one debates. She has done 30 of these presidential debates in her lifetime, facing one-on-one against Barack Obama and against Senator Bernie Sanders, whereas Donald Trump has always faced off amongst a group of people. So we'll see how he does. I know his advisors are recommending him tonight to remain calm. Lauren?
Jason Calvi, live, Hofstra University. Thank you so much. 3 national polls show Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump locked in a tight race. According to Bloomberg, Trump edges Clinton in a 4-way race, 43 to 41%. Monmouth University shows Trump losing to Clinton, 42 to 46. And Quinnipiac University shows a virtual tie with Trump down 1 point to Clinton, 43 to 44%. Trump's support among white Catholics is skyrocketing. A Washington Post ABC News poll had him down 3 points in August, but now he leads Clinton 57 to 33%. Joining us from Hofstra University, Mercedes Schlapp is a Republican strategist. Melinda Hannenberger is an opinion writer for USA Today. Both are Catholic women who have participated in or covered politics for decades. Mercedes, let's start with you, shall we? Welcome to the program. Trump is winning the white Catholic vote, 57 to 33%. Does that surprise you? Why is that?
You know, actually, I am not surprised because when you look at the hostility of Hillary Clinton towards Catholics, when you take positions, for example, the fact that she went with the United Nations on a delegation where she pushed for universal demand on abortion, when she's one that supported forcing the Little Sisters of the Poor to have to use contraception in terms of the Obamacare mandate, when she's made statements like we need to change deep-seated cultural codes and religious beliefs. I mean, it's just so hostile for religious practicing Catholics that what we're seeing now is the fact that I think Catholics are really opening up to Donald Trump's message in terms of saying, look, I will put in Supreme Court justices like Justice Scalia, strict constitutionalists. I will fight for religious freedoms. I will work to push forward pro-life legislation. I think that is just very positive message for those practicing Catholics that are finally being able to listen to Donald Trump's message. And, you know, at first they were skeptical, but I think it really is resonating in these communities, especially in battleground states like Ohio and Pennsylvania.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about Hispanic Catholics in just a minute. But, Melinda, why do you think that Hillary Clinton was ahead and now she's lost?
Well, I think she has lost support in general. It's obviously a much tighter race than a lot of people ever expected it to be. And I have to agree that she is not in line with what we think of as any Catholic issues, really. So I wouldn't expect any of that to change this evening. I think that when you look at the white Catholic vote versus the white vote in general, I mean, white voters are supporting Trump 51 to 33. So I don't know how much of that is really religion and how much is race.
So Mercedes, Trump is not doing well among Catholic Hispanics. That's 77%.
Right.
Right, mostly over his immigration plan to deport illegal aliens. Can that number change based on Trump's performance tonight?
I think it's going to be interesting to see how he phrases his immigration policy. Obviously, that's been an issue that's important to Hispanics. It's not the most important issue, but it does in many ways basically define or really put into play what Hispanics are thinking in terms of immigration. So I think for Donald Trump, he is, for example, going to Miami, Florida tomorrow to go talk to Hispanics about a variety of issues. Hispanics care about the economy. They care about national security. And so I think, Lauren, he is making that outreach, but obviously Hillary Clinton has had the advantage with the Hispanics for some time.
Okay, Mercedes Schlapp, Republican strategist, thank you so much, joining us from Hofstra University.
Thank you.
And also to Melinda Hannenberger, who is joining us here in the studio. The Republican and Democratic parties have never been farther apart on issues related to life. It used to be written in the Democratic Party platform that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. Well, the word rare is gone, and as Donald Trump wrote in his letter to the Catholic Pro-Life Advisory Board, Clinton wants abortion to be protected until right before birth. We will talk to Marjorie Dannenfelser-Bryan coming up. She heads up the advisory board. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Lauren Ashburn. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. Police say a disgruntled lawyer randomly shot at drivers in a Houston neighborhood this morning. Witnesses say the chaos lasted about 40 minutes. Police killed the suspect, but not before 6 people were shot. 3 more were hurt by flying glass or debris. One of the victims is in critical condition tonight. Investigators say the man had a cache of weapons and may have been fired by his law firm. Police tracked down the man suspected in the fatal shootings of 5 people in Washington state at a mall. Investigators say 20-year-old Arkansas teen shot the victims with a rifle at a Macy's makeup counter Friday night. The U.S. resident immigrated from Turkey. Police say he's had several run-ins with the law. A Mexican priest kidnapped from his parish is found dead. This is the 3rd Catholic priest to be killed in Mexico this past week. Wyatt Goolsby's joining us with that story. Wyatt?
Brian, investigators in Mexico say Father Jose Alfredo Lopez Guillen's body was found Saturday night, shot to death. As if that wasn't bad enough, the Archdiocese of Mexico City says they're fighting back against what they call a smear campaign against Lopez and 2 other priests.
It has been a difficult week for Catholics in Mexico. Authorities say Father Lopez was kidnapped Monday, the same day police in Veracruz found the bodies of 2 other priests who had also been abducted, then shot. Their deaths bring the total number of priests killed in Mexico in the last 10 years to 31.
Assicuro la mia preghiera per il caro popolo messicano.
On Sunday, Pope Francis prayed for the slain Mexican priests. Parishioners at this Mexican church are skeptical of accusations the 2 slain priests at Veracruz were drinking with gang members last week before their get-together turned violent. Dr. Jorge Trasloceros, a historian at the National University of Mexico, says accusations against clergy members are common.
It's a communication strategy of the Mexican government. They always accuse the victim for having ties with the crime.
Trasloceros says the Mexican president, Enrique Peña Nieto, is trying to show drug-related violence is down on his watch, but organized crime continues to plague states like Guerrero, Veracruz, and Michoacan, where there are regular killings and disappearances.
The government says that everything is under control, but the truth is that it is not. Corruption and violence are the name and last name of Mexico right now.
Trasloceros says the Catholic Church is helping to promote peace. Pope Francis denounced the drug trade and related violence during his trip to Mexico earlier this year. But Trasloceros says after this week, it's clear the country has a long way to go.
The priests aren't the only ones attacked. Mexico has seen thousands of kidnappings and homicides since the new president took office. Brian.
Wyatt Goolsby, thank you. And Pope Francis supports the Mexican bishops in their opposition to the government's push to legalize marriage for same-sex couples. Addressing pilgrims in St. Peter's Square Sunday, the Holy Father says he's in favor of family and life. Tens of thousands of people marched through Mexico City Saturday protesting the president's proposal to redefine marriage. They held banners warning against so-called same-sex marriage. They demanded parents' rights to control sex education in schools. Pope Francis denounces schools that teach an improper gender ideology. The Vatican Secretary of State joins other world leaders witnessing today's historic signing of a peace agreement between the Colombian government and leftist guerrillas. The signing ceremony was held at San Pedro Claver Catholic Church. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry urges Colombians to embrace the peace deal with FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. The European Union plans to drop that group from its terror list. It's not clear yet if the U.S. will follow suit. Coming up, a pro-life leader previews tonight's presidential debate, and Representative Diane Black on protecting states' rights to defund Planned Parenthood. The central truth of our Catholic faith, the life, death, and resurrection of Christ, was the focus of Pope Francis' Sunday morning homily. He celebrated Mass, marking the Jubilee of Catechists in this year of mercy. Thanks for joining us this Monday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. We go back now to Lauren Ashburn at our political desk for analysis of one of the key issues likely to come up at tonight's presidential debate. Lauren?
Brian, one of the biggest differences in the parties surrounds abortion. Last week, we reported that there's a chance this year that the Hyde Amendment, which bans federal funding for abortion, might not be renewed by Congress. But if Donald Trump is president, he says he will defund Planned Parenthood. Pro-life advocates will be watching the debate tonight to see if the issue comes up. And joining us here in studio, Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of the Susan B. Anthony List and national chairwoman of Trump's pro-life coalition. Welcome to the program.
Thank you once again.
What do you think the moderator is going to spend time talking about when it comes to Catholic issues? Will abortion be front and center?
Well, I think it should be front and center every single time. I think there's nothing more important than the right that is the font for every other right. I think given the reality of politics as we know it, it's not 100% likely, as much as we've tried. I think if there's anything that's relevant, though, it's taxpayers' consciences. The Hyde Amendment would be a really smart common ground thing to bring up.
And if they do bring that up, what should Catholics be listening for?
We should be listening to code words. Code words like everyone's consciences should be provided for, but then no real policy implication of that. I think that's very likely given Hillary Clinton's normal talk.
And what do you mean by that? Explain
Meaning
a little bit.
when she talks about late-term abortion, she says, I think that late-term abortion there should be restrictions. But when it comes down to it, she says, I think that the unborn person has no rights up until the point of birth.
Right.
So I think we should be looking for code words like, I think there should be regulations, but then no actual words that follow that in terms of policy, like I will support the Hyde Amendment, which she won't.
Right. So let's take a look at this letter that Donald Trump sent to the pro-life coalition. She wants to force the taxpayers to pay for abortions by repealing the bipartisan Hyde Amendment. Hillary Clinton also supports abortion until an hour before birth. Now, you're on this pro-life advisory committee. Outside of the debate, what are your hopes and dreams for Catholics?
Well, I'm leading this coalition, this pro-life coalition, because I am convicted that every single pro-life American, especially in the battleground states, should be voting for life in this election. And so they should be looking for candidates in the presidential election, and I'm saying I think I know what they are. We've got promises from Hillary Clinton that are to rescind the Hyde Amendment, to fail to protect children up until birth. We have commitments on the side of Trump to protect children up until birth, to protect consciences of taxpayers with a Hyde Amendment. So what we're looking to do is for every single voter to vote pro-life in this election, especially in the battleground states. And then we have a great potential ahead of us to really save lives.
All right. Thank you so much, Marjorie Dannenfelser, Susan B. Anthony List. And Brian, we'll have coverage of Debate Reaction right here tomorrow. We'll be in the spin room tonight, listening as surrogates stump for Trump and Clinton. Back to you, Brian.
All right, thank you, Lauren. Representative Diane Black of Tennessee and Iowa Senator Joni Ernst co-author a bipartisan letter to the Department of Health and Human Services. This letter is signed by more than 100 members of Congress. It opposes a rule they say props up Planned Parenthood. Tennessee Representative Diane Black joining us from the Capitol. Congressman, can you outline your concerns about this rule and what it would mean for the states?
Certainly. The new ruling that the president has put out from his office is that we no longer at the state level would have the option to decide which organization, which agency would be best to provide the women's health services. It would provide that we would have to consider Planned Parenthood. And for instance, in the state of Tennessee, we have those dollars going to our health departments and our federally qualified health departments to give them more comprehensive care. And that would be something that we couldn't decide. That would be taken away from us.
In a recent op-ed, you described this as insidious and you called it a political ploy. Can you speak more to that?
Yes, I mean, if we look at the president, we see by his actions over at least the last 6 years I've been here, he has an unholy alliance with the big abortion industry. I'm surprised that Cecile Richards doesn't have an office over there in the White House. But we see that he wants to continue to protect the abortion industry, in particular Planned Parenthood, and he has now proposed a rule before he leaves here that would undo what many states have done, where they feel like their dollars are better used in other ways than Planned Parenthood for providing comprehensive women's health.
How would you compare the relationship between this administration and Planned Parenthood with those of the past?
Well, we see things that this president has done that there has never happened with another president. For one, he attended their big fundraiser. We have never seen a sitting president do that before.
So in addition to this letter that you and Senator Ernst and others have sent, what else will you do?
Well, first of all, we hope that he will hear a message from us that this is bicameral, bipartisan. We have over 100 co-sponsors on this, that this is something that's very concerning to us legislators. Because of the state's rights, we should have the right to determine where those dollars go to when they come to our state, where they can best be used. But we'll also be having this message out wide and far to others in the country that are concerned, beside legislators, and we'll just see where that goes. We'll bring the full force of Congress to that, and that may even mean that we'll have to take action to take this to court to make sure that we do have states' rights.
We'll follow this very closely. Representative Diane Black of Tennessee, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, documenting war crimes, the evidence of Christian genocide in the Middle East, and seminarians arrive in Rome to advance their priestly formation. Saints Cosmas and Damian, early Christian physicians celebrated by the church today on this 26th of September. They brought many to the faith, accepting no pay for their healing services. These martyrs are mentioned in our first Eucharistic prayer. Thanks for joining us on this Monday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. As Christians and other religious minorities face continued persecution in the Middle East, tonight we get a unique point of view on the fight against genocide. Naomi Keykoller is Deputy Director of Simon Scott Center for the Prevention of Genocide at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. How common is genocide in world history?
Genocide is incredibly rare. That's what makes the fact that we're talking about its commission in Iraq right now so tragic. Since the Holocaust, there have been 4 genocides committed. The most recent has been in northern Iraq by ISIS against religious minorities.
As a lawyer, how do you document these atrocities for future prosecution?
So there is a process where you can go and gather witness testimony in camps and in homes where displaced communities are. There's also mass graves that have been exposed now for over a year and a half, and very little effort has been made to actually gather evidence from them, analyze that evidence, and preserve it.
So can perpetrators of this kind of genocide be prosecuted in a court of law? Is it a world court?
It's a great question. Yes, they can be prosecuted, and they need to be prosecuted. We've got perpetrators that can be held responsible in domestic courts in Iraq and in Kurdistan for crimes that they committed, like rape, murder. You can also be prosecuted through regional tribunals or the International Criminal Court for acts of genocide.
We've seen the video and pictures on television, but you've actually been to Iraq and you've talked to these people directly. Give us a sense of what they're going through.
They're experiencing complete anguish at this particular point. They were driven from their homes over 2 years ago, and they don't know when or if they will actually be able to return home. Many people do not know where their loved ones are, and they don't know whether or not they're ever going to know who hurt them or what actually happened to them.
And the genocide declaration by the U.S. government, our State Department, has that made any difference?
The genocide declaration, I think, was very important to acknowledge the suffering of these particular communities and recognize what has happened to them. Unfortunately, we haven't really seen a serious investment in trying to document the very crimes we're talking about. There's still no international commission that's investigating them. We also see that these communities remain displaced. And though we're fighting ISIS, which is one of the best ways in which we can defeat the threats facing these communities, there's still no plan for the day after and for these communities' returns to their homes.
Well, we're grateful for the work that you're doing and for keeping us abreast of that. Naomi Keykoller with the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, thanks for being with us on EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you.
A new group of seminarians arrives in Rome from the U.S. to begin studies at the North American College there. Mary Shovelin reports from Rome tonight.
Del Pontificio Collegio Nordamericano.
Pope Francis welcomes this year's freshman class from the North American College during the Sunday Angelus. Seminarians coming for their first year in Rome are affectionately known as the new men, sent by their bishops from dioceses across the United States. For the last 157 years, some of America's future priests, cardinals, and bishops have been trained here. Rector Peter Harmon began his term this past February, and this is the first time he will welcome the new group as rector.
I think my role is to continue what we already have, and in every way really just try to mirror to the men, having been a pastor myself, both the real responsibilities that come with being a parish priest, but also the great and unique joy, the great privilege that it is.
Helped by their brother seminarians that have already lived a year or two in the Eternal City, this class of 56 seminarians is discovering a new country, learning a new language, and meeting new friends.
Part of formation certainly is finding out who you are. And I think the NAC really will provide that opportunity for me if I trust the system and am disciplined with prayer.
So far, the experience of living in Rome is actually quite overwhelming. Not in the bad sense, but it's been very much a joyful experience, one that's been filled with surprises.
They will attend classes at Rome's pontifical universities and receive in-depth pastoral formation while also working in various apostolates around Rome to help the poor and needy. The city of Rome itself becoming part of their formation.
Rome itself, I believe, is the greatest classroom. To see in the witness of the saints who walked on these roads, to see in the people in their classroom from every continent, and to see the true Catholic nature that is our church.
Much will change in the lives of these young men over the next few years, but it's nice to see that while they may be far from home, they also bring a little bit of home with them to Rome. In Rome, Mary Shovelin, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Mary. Such young guys, our future priests. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. Tonight, we're going to leave you with another view of the presidential debate stage where Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump meet face to face tonight. Join us for complete debate coverage tomorrow.